Good afternoon. My name is Myriam Hunter-Henin, and together with my colleague, Professor Alison Diduck, I convened the course Advanced Issues in Family Law, Globalization, Multiculturalism and Religion. The code for the course is LAWSG155. It's a course that runs throughout the year and counts as 30 credit. Alison Diduck will run you through the general syllabus and structure of the course later on. So just let me give you a flavour of the general perspective that we adopt. It's a course about family law, no surprise here. But family law beyond national contexts and beyond national concepts. I think that nowadays you cannot study family law within the limits of one nation state. You will have foreign nationals travelling to the UK and settling in the UK. You will have UK domiciled families drawing up wills and trusts in relation to properties and assets located abroad. You may have couples from France travelling to California in order to have a surrogacy agreement that French law forbids, and so on. Examples of cross-border family relationships are numerous, and they are forever increasing. These instances of cross-border relationships also raise fascinating legal questions. We may, for example, wonder what law to apply to a situation that is connected to different states. If you have a handsome Italian groom marrying an English bride, what law should then apply to determine the validity of their marriage? English law or Italian law? And what if the situation created abroad is artificial? And the trip abroad was solely for the purpose of obtaining what is not allowed under the law of the home country, for example, a forced marriage or a child through a surrogacy agreement. Should the law of the home country then systematically refuse to recognize the situation created abroad? Those types of questions and answers that are provided by legal systems and should be provided will be considered in the course. For future life, for your future life, usually in practice, this international dimension is crucial. Especially if you're then based in vibrant London, it is essential for practitioners in family law to realize that English law may not always be applicable and that English law concepts will not always be recognized and enforced abroad. The style of teaching maybe is something you would like to know about. Unlike this presentation, the teaching will be very interactive. Within, of course, a set of questions and reading list for each session, and with summaries of the objectives for each particular seminar, the sessions will be based on an exchange of arguments and counter-arguments. I think that this style of teaching is really entertaining. It's a good way of drawing on everyone's previous experiences, and it's also ideal to extract undercurrent themes that run throughout the course. But I don't want to say too much and spoil the fun. As I said, Alison will run you through the syllabus to give you a bit more flesh. Just as a conclusion, a final word on assessment. If you take the course, the final word, or words rather, will actually go to you in the form of an essay on a topic of your choice. You can freely choose the title, but Alison and I must approve the essay question, and we'll give you all the help you need in finding a suitable title. In selecting a topic, I would say that you need to look for innovation with caution. Innovation in that we encourage you to choose questions that lead you to suggest possible reforms or possible new angles, approaches on a particular legal question. But we also urge you for caution and will only approve titles that are feasible within the word and the time limit. Thank you for watching the video, and we hope to see you on the course soon.
Hello, my name is Alison Diduck, and together with my colleague, Dr. Myriam Hunter-Henin, I co-convene the course on Advanced Issues in Family Law, Multiculturalism, Globalization, and Religion. Myriam talked to you about the structure of the course, the way we approach the course, the importance of the international and comparative perspective that we want to encourage on the course. What I'd like to do now is just go through a little bit about the subject matter and some of the seminar topics that we cover on the course. The course is in 3 parts, and the first part is about giving you some idea of the concepts, introducing concepts that we sometimes think are very familiar and universally understood. So something like the family. We all think we know what the family is, but when we start probing that concept, we see not only that it can mean a relationship between 2 adults, whether they be of the same sex or different sexes. We can see that it might include children or not. We can see it might include parents and extended family. And that these are sometimes a matter of cultural differences, of national differences, and certainly law has a part to play in defining those relationships as either familial ones or not. But more than that, we like to adopt an almost interdisciplinary approach to some of these conceptual notions as well. There is, for example, some recent sociological input that thinks, well, maybe family isn't a thing or a noun or an institution at all. Maybe it's something more that people do. Do we do family? Is family behavior something that we're interested in? How do we think about family living? And so it's that kind of conceptual analysis that we're going to be doing in the first part of the course. What does law have to do with regulating our ways of living in a family relationship? So we'll introduce ideas of motherhood, which we also like to think is universal sometimes, but we'll probe that and we'll question that. Fatherhood, childhood. So these basic concepts are not necessarily universal. They're not necessarily always only legal. For example, do we think of a child as being a subject of law, or do we think of a child as a becoming? Eventually, we think of child as becoming adults, and so we address their legal concerns as becomings rather than beings. That kind of sociological work we'll do in the first part of the conceptual questions in the course. The second part of the course focuses on the nature of globalization. What do we mean by that? Partly we mean that the world is just a smaller place, that advances and changes in communication and in migration and in transportation mean that jurisdictions around the world, particularly England and Wales, which will be the focus of our course, need to accommodate a kind of pluralistic or multicultural approach to the way it regulates family living. So we'll look at things like the place of religious courts, the place of religious decisions and how people regulate their lives in that way. We'll look at the concept of legal pluralism. What place is there in England and Wales for a legally pluralistic approach? The final part of the course is focused on particular issues that arise once we have these conceptual, theoretical, and foundational bases. And those issues may change from year to year. What I can do now is give you an example of some of the issues that we've covered in the past. Things like international adoption, things like international or what we call reproductive tourism, Should we be able to go to another jurisdiction to exercise our reproductive choices with respect to abortion, with respect to surrogacy, that kind of thing? Should the law permit that? And if so, how should it be regulated? What about the questions that arise, I think, along the lines of what Myriam talked about before? If a same-sex couple gets married in England and Wales, is that relationship recognized in another part of the world? And should any kind of universal notion govern that kind of recognition? When I talk about universalism, it may sound to be contradictory to notions of pluralism and localism and local religious ideas. But maybe there's a place for universal ideas, for example, of human rights, particularly the human right of equality in regulating family relationships. And so issues of equality arise in terms of how maternal and paternal relations with children might be organized. Issues of relocation outside the jurisdiction we'll also look at. International child abduction. That's just a taste of the kinds of subjects or the kinds of topics that we'll cover in the second part of the course. So it gives some scope to changing those issues if we like. If something's happening in the world that's really topical or really sexy, well, we can bring those into the course if we like. There are some that are pretty much consistent: international adoption and child abduction, that kind of thing. The general outline of the course is available on the web, and indeed if you take a look at the website, on the web page for this, you'll see some indication of the reading materials and resources that are required for it. But we can also say right now that we don't have a standard textbook for this course. The readings are going to be given to you in advance, but they will be separate for each seminar from the library or from online resources. So you will be expected to access different published articles, policy papers, and that kind of material for each seminar. Anyway, I hope that this has intrigued you enough that we'll see you at some point on the course over the next year. And thank you very much for watching this video.